Today I am doing the unthinkable. I'm going to tell you what consultants make at every level of the organization. You may have seen my previous video where I talked about the staffing pyramid. I used paper to describe in detail why I think it doesn't serve the workforce or the consulting companies very well. Feel free to check out that video later. But the reason I want to do this video today is because, number one, I know that pay is a very taboo subject and we keep all of this information sort of secretive and under wraps, and I think it ends up creating more transience in the industry. It incentivizes people to leave their current company and go somewhere else because we're not equipping the workforce with the knowledge they need to enter into a mutually beneficial employment relationship from the beginning. So if you see this information today and you feel like you're stuck, I don't want you to feel like you're stuck. I don't want you to be mad at your current company. I want you to have the knowledge that you need to be able to navigate your own career in a way that gives you balance and gives you some means of holding your company accountable to what are industry standards. So where's this information coming from today? I want to emphasize strongly, this is not salary information for the company that currently employs me. I will not make any reference to my current company. You can follow me on LinkedIn if you'd like to know, but I want to be very specific. These are not specific pay bands for the company that I work for. These pay bands that I'm going to share, the salary ranges, are applicable generally across the entire industry of consulting. And a little bone to pick with LinkedIn, up until within the past year, LinkedIn has made all of this information public. There used to be a tool where you could search for a specific job title and a location, a city, and it would actually show you what companies are paying. That information was sourced from surveys that went out to people who participate on LinkedIn. I know that LinkedIn was also probably buying some information, some survey data, because there's a lot of industry reports and a lot of companies that just survey salary data, and it's a lot of the times it's used by HR to kind of create some of these pay bands that we're going to see, but just by and large, the information that I'm going to share today used to be public on LinkedIn. And if you search on LinkedIn salary lookup tool, LinkedIn has a very carefully worded statement of why they're not sharing it anymore. I have a feeling it has to do with some of the pay transparency legislation that's starting to roll out across some of the states. Forgive me, I don't mean to belabor that point too much, but I just want to share with you that this information is applicable to the consulting industry at large. It's been widely available given certain sources over the years, and now it seems to have disappeared. So again, I want to equip the workforce the best I can to enter into a mutually beneficial employment relationship with your employer. So without further ado, I have been in consulting for the past 10 years. I currently serve as the director of consulting services for a company. I've hired a lot of people. I've negotiated a lot of salaries, not only for myself, but for other people. And here we are. I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to move my fingers. I want to give you a chance to screenshot this, and that way you can screenshot it, and then we can get into it. All right. So, my previous video on the staffing pyramid, I just held this up over here. So check out that video later, but I begin talking about the staffing pyramid and the titles within consulting, starting at analyst. You'll notice that's kind of hanging off the bottom down here. So we're gonna go through these. I'm gonna describe this in a second, but you notice it's kind of hanging down here. From what I've seen, and again, from data you used to be able to source on LinkedIn, analysts are generally towards the lower range of consultants. So you see here, consultants are roughly 60 to 80,000. Senior consultants are roughly 80 to about 110. And that's where we start seeing manager pay beginning around that 110,000 pay range up to about 150. Senior managers, 150 to around 200. And then you have this sort of this executive level or equity partnerships, and this is where the range gets really large. I've seen low 200s. I've also seen close to $1 million, at some of the big four and partners. And one thing to note about this level is depending on how the company is structured legally, whether it's a partnership or whether it's a corporation, if it's publicly traded, the salary, bonus, equity share might range significantly. So this is just kind of there's a lot more variation and versatility up in those levels. But really where I want to spend most of the conversation is down here, because I think that's what most people are really looking for. By the time you get up here, you know the industry, you've learned it, you're definitely good at playing the game. But down here, these are the folks that I think are really going to benefit the most from this information. So if I haven't said it already, if you have been employed for several years and you're trying to navigate a career and you're sitting at consultant and you're sitting towards the bottom of the pay band and you're really, really struggling, I don't want you to be upset with this information, because there's a lot that we can learn about this. So note that, and again, I want to say, so these ranges are going to change slightly depending on your company. Like for example, maybe your company has, maybe your company doesn't refer to consultant as a career level. Maybe they're all associates. Maybe it's junior associate, lead associate, managing associate. I've seen all sorts of naming conventions for titles. Part of the reason for that is they want to get around some of this information, because consulting is a very transient industry. So if all of the companies have all the same titles, and these are generally what the pay bands are going to be, then it makes it very easy for employees to just walk across the street, ask for the same title, ask for a promotion. You've learned what the pay bands are, you can get more money elsewhere, right? So the titles may change a little bit company to company. The pay bands might be a little bit lower to a little bit higher. Again, I want to give you sort of that general guideline of what the range is. Typical salary range. Don't hold me to this too hard. I'm doing my best to give you as much as I can and give you information that I think is going to be useful. There are outliers. To anybody who feels super compelled to leave a comment below and tell me about your company and what your company does, I would love to know, and I would love for you to share that with the folks that are watching this video as well. So here's a couple things to note towards the bottom. There's a lot of business schools will sell a very romantic picture of consulting, and especially MBA programs will say, you get an MBA, go into consulting, six-figure income straight out of the gate. That's just simply not true in the majority of instances. I hope this isn't cropped off the bottom. I'm gonna hold this higher. Actually, I'm gonna put this down for a second. So if you haven't screenshotted it, take a screenshot, and then we'll come back to this. Okay. Yeah, the six-figure income, just because you have an MBA, is not the majority of instances. When I first got into consulting, I had an MBA, I had industry certifications, and I wasn't anywhere near a six-figure income at that time. And I worked for Deloitte. So you really have to take this as non-emotionally as possible, because pay is an indicator of how your company sees your value. Non-emotionally speaking, right? We know that there's a big candidate pool, not just for job applicants, but once you're in a consulting company, there's a whole lot of people there with a lot of expertise. So if you find that you're having a hard time getting promoted and you're towards the bottom of one of those pay bands that I just showed you, we can look at years of experience, we can look at certifications, we can look at grad schools, we can look at critical skills, we can look at client relationship, we can look at a whole bunch of different things before we start to get upset about what we make and where we make it. Because the truth is, if you're really, really unhappy with what you're getting paid, you can probably walk across the street and correct that relatively quickly if you're bringing the right skills to the table. If not, this is good information to pause, look at your resume, which I'm sure you've kept updated, and really have a hard, truthful conversation with yourself about what you're bringing to the table versus some of the peers that you may be working with. So I know everybody's question is going to be, how do I take this information and get a raise? First, I want to talk to you about, I think it's more helpful to ask, how do the companies use this information? And I'm going to glance at a few notes that I made ahead of time because I want to try to keep this as short as possible. But at a very high level, we're looking at economics, right? We're looking at a consultant salary range, typically on average, of about $20,000. Senior consultants, about $30,000. Manager, about $40,000. Senior managers, about $50,000. And then executives and equity partners at 200 plus. Supply and demand. The pay band for consultants is much narrower because, as you can imagine, entry-level consultants and even consultants with 2 to 3 years of experience who may have been promoted to senior, we're talking about basic consulting skills, client relationship management, your ability to analyze information, your ability to actually pitch or speak publicly, give presentations, quality check data and deliverables. And as a value add to the organization, there's a lot of people who can perform those tasks. So the pay band's going to be a little bit tighter and competition's going to be a little bit harder in those ranks because there are more people. So setting yourself apart, whether it's a graduate degree, which by the way, I don't actually strongly recommend. I think if you can get your company to pay for it, that's great. I don't think you should be going into debt to get a grad degree. I do not think so at all. There are plenty of great ways to get grad school funded. Separate conversation. Most consulting companies, most, I'm sure there's some exceptions, will pay for certifications. Pairing certifications together is another great way to give yourself a unique competitive advantage. There's a lot of PMPs, but there's not a lot of PMPs that have a CPA. And so we look for different ways to create unique competitive advantage within those career levels. Consultant, trying to vie for promotion to senior consultant, or senior consultants trying to get promoted to manager. There's a whole lot of indicator that we can draw from looking at these pay bands and seeing how many years of experience you have. I think I've already said this, how many years of experience and what sort of unique qualifications that you may have with your client or with your business. If you're just truly stuck, then you look at years of experience, you look at your client relationship, you look at the critical skills that you bring, you look at any sort of graduate school, professional certifications, industry connections. And if you really truly, when you are honest with yourself looking in the mirror, if you feel like you're not being valued where you are, then absolutely there's a lot of different places that you can go. Not just big companies, but small companies and everything in between. So I think I want to leave it there. If you have any further questions about this, please leave comments below. I will reply. I had a couple other comments, but I think I want to leave it there today because I really, really, really don't want anybody to be upset by this. I want you to know that empowering yourself with the information is the best way to hold your employer accountable, to hold your interviewer accountable when you're interviewing for a new job. And ultimately, learning the business of the business is going to help you find the most mutually beneficial relationship between yourself and your employer. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to empower the workforce one conversation at a time. So before you leave this video, please vote. If you like this content, if you want more content, that's what the like and the subscribe button is for. It shows me that this is helpful to you and also directs me to make more content like this. So I'd love to see a comment below. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you next time.